Hey, Susan, the last few weeks I've been followed online by ads for Noom. So I decided to check it out. Have you heard of Noom before?
I have.
So what caught my eye about Noom is that it's a personalized weight loss plan.
Yeah, most weight loss plans are sort of a one-size-fits-all deal, and that doesn't work when everyone leads such different, crazy, hectic lives. And I know for us, a big challenge of trying to eat right is being on the road a lot, and between airports and, me and the hotel breakfast bars.
You do love those breakfast bars.
Love those. A little too much. And that's why Noom is great. It addresses your lifestyle, your habits, and finds the issues in your life that are blocking your weight loss goals.
It feels like a personalized weight loss plan to meet everyone's lifestyle. And the best thing about it, it doesn't seem to restrict what you eat and doesn't shame you when you choose to treat yourself. Hello, Manhattans.
So if you want to get one of those hotel waffles, you're good to go. Look, you're going to have cravings. There's going to be things you want to eat. With Noom, you can. And Noom helps you lose weight while still enjoying your life.
It also looks at your personal psychology. Losing weight starts with the brain, so why not look at your brain to see what would work for you?
Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. And check out Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
So don't forget, sign up for your trial today at Noom.com.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Susan, we all carry around different stressors, some big and some small.
And sometimes they all tend to hit you at once on the same day.
Yeah, like today. It's not been a great day.
More on that later on the show. But we all carry around these stressors, and keeping them bottled up can affect us negatively.
But therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down.
Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who experience major trauma. It's also for those who've experienced a lot of bad things happening on one day.
So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge.
Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/proof today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/proof.
For well over a year now, we've been investigating Jake's case, turning over every stone we can and talking to every witness we can track down. Jake has remained cautious, though, about what this might all mean for him.
I've been thinking a lot about what you said and everything that's been going on. And I don't know, I can't get excited about this. Everybody's wondering, how come you're not excited? I can't. I don't know, I just jaded. I don't know.
If you don't get your hopes up, they can't be crushed. And you know what? You don't need to be excited. I can be excited for you.
Wow, right on.
You've had enough.
Thank you for saying that.
Regardless of what any of this may mean for him personally, though, Jake has been excited to hear every new update we have and to find out about every step closer we've gotten to finding out what happened to Renee.
I'm just glad it's finally, the truth is starting to come out. It's a relief.
Yeah.
Huge weight off my chest. I'm more worried about Renee than anybody else. Like her getting real justice, her mom deserves it very much as well,
I do think, in the course of our investigation, we've been able to untangle the messy story of how Jake Silva and Ty Lopes got convicted, and how bad evidence put two innocent men behind bars for life. But the question of what happened to Renee remains unanswered.
It's not secured and solid, it's just floating, and I hate that feeling. That's the last thing I ever want this to be, is an open case, like a cold case or whatever.
There are answers out there, though. If we're certain of one thing in this case, it's that a lot of people know a lot of things that could end up mattering a lot.
If people are out there with information, what would you like to say to them?
I mean, why wouldn't they come forward? Just out of respect for Renee and for the truth, and I've been sitting here for going on 24 years. I was 18, but I'm a 42-year-old type 1 diabetic now with a walker. Why wouldn't they come forward? I don't see why they wouldn't come forward.
What if they're worried that it would look bad for them, or they'd be turning in a friend or something like that?
I mean, does it matter? The truth is the truth. Even if it's their friend and he did that, I mean, doesn't Renee deserve that justice? Don't I deserve to be free? I mean, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong.
It's not that simple, though. Or maybe it is that simple, I don't know. Either way, it doesn't change the reality that, for a lot of people, coming forward would be a bigger sacrifice than they're able to make. But with every person who does come forward, we get a little bit closer to finding the truth. I'm Susan Simpson.
And I'm Jacinda Davis.
Proof is a Red Marble Media production in association with Glassbox Media.
New episodes are released on Mondays, and on Thursdays you can catch our sidebar episodes where we talk about the case and tell you more about what's going on behind the scenes.
You are listening to the second to last episode in Season 2 of Proof. This is Episode 16, Junior and the Source. The very first person who told us we needed to look at Tim Fisher was Victoria, the mother of Jake's friend Lewis. And after our second interview with Tim, we met with Victoria again as well. The truth is, the first time we talked to her, we'd been pretty skeptical of what she'd told us. But we told her we understood now why she'd been concerned.
It sounds like you've been waiting a long time to find someone who would listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
But you're not the only one who suspected him.
Well, anybody with half a brain and that many coincidences, you think would come to the same conclusion.
After talking to Tim for ourselves, I too strongly suspected that he knew more about what happened than he was saying. But withholding information about something that happened is not the same thing at all as being responsible for what happened. We still needed to figure out what exactly Tim might know. And one place to start with that was by talking to people who knew him. We'd had some more questions for Victoria, but when she heard we'd filmed our most recent interview with Tim, she'd wanted to see it for herself.
Oh, that is Tim, yeah. You see that little almost a yawn? That's a tell as far as he goes. He's turning red. Look at him flushing.
Very tall, lanky. He's very, very forceful on women when it comes to sexual things, and he's very vulgar.
He's upset he's getting outed, what I see, from knowing him.
Somebody put something in his head, too.
Yes, it does, I could tell. Can I watch that again?
Sure.
We found it very curious that he did not have any questions for us about this video.
Yeah, do you think?
He didn't ask us who made it,
Where did
Nothing.
he get it?
who has it, why was this made, none of that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He'd be much more adamant and forceful from the Tim I know.
Okay, go ahead and hit that space bar.
Oh, you thought it was an accident, maybe?
Well, yeah. Was he like, shut the fuck up?
I think that's what happened with him and her. I don't know. So freaking sad.
I see you're getting upset.
Well, knowing it and dealing with the reality is...
Were you hoping you would hear something today that would convince you you've been wrong?
No, I didn't hope that. That's how much I think I'm right. Hoping otherwise didn't even enter my mind. I'm hoping that I did it by accident.
One of the reasons Victoria suspected Tim was because of conversations she'd had with Tim's ex, Amber, while Amber and Tim were still together. And just to be clear, the Amber we're talking about here is not Renee's friend Amber. It's a completely different woman who never lived in Manteca. But Victoria had told us that one night when she and Amber were hanging out and having some drinks together, Amber had made a comment that caught Victoria off guard.
And all of a sudden she just spurts out, yeah, Tim even got away with murder.
But you think she was talking about Renee?
Yes, I do. That's what I took it as. Oh, Tim told her.
Victoria told us that Amber had confided in her about something else as well.
We asked Tim about rumors that he liked to choke people.
Oh, this will be interesting. See you deny that.
If someone's having sex and they like to strangle people and it goes too far, you end up killing the girl, you're probably not going to finish.
I've never been into that. I've heard girls say they like shit like that, and that's so fucking creepy, too.
People have told us you are into it.
Oh my gosh. No, as soon as Amber, she started confiding in me when we were alone, how Tim likes to choke her out. And I was like, everybody has their thing, but if it's something you don't like, then put it quick into it.
So why do you think he's denying it there?
Why? Because he doesn't want anyone to know. You need to talk to Amber.
We did talk to Amber. She told us that she first met Tim after he'd left Manteca and was living up in Stockton.
I met him November 3rd of the year 2000. So I don't even know when this case occurred, but I know it all happened before Tim and I. When did this happen? Do you know what year this happened? Obviously you do.
Yep, this was June of 2000.
Oh my God. That was the same year I met him. I thought this happened in 96. Wow. I'm in shock by that.
Amber had heard about the case. She remembers it being talked about not long after she and Tim first got together.
What I was told, I'd heard it from a few of his friends that at some point he had become a suspect. I didn't even know about the case, to be honest. I just remember them talking about it once in a while and him denying it. It was alarming, but he was so adamant about, I wasn't there, I hardly knew her. But fast forward, being with him for 10 years, it turned out to be a very violent relationship that I had to get out of safely.
I asked Amber what she remembered Tim's friends saying about the case, back when she and Tim first started dating.
It was just maybe a total of 3 conversations at the very beginning of our relationship that I overheard with his friends.
Was it kind of like a joking way that they would talk about it, as him as a suspect?
No, actually, they seemed more serious, and he would just be like, well, that's crazy. But his friends seemed to be pretty serious about the allegations.
Do you remember his friends' names?
It was his close circle of friends.
Amber told us a few names. Among them was Lewis, Jake's friend, the one who referred to Tim as his brother. Lewis would not answer questions about Tim, but he'd also never discouraged us from looking into him. Things made a bit more sense now. All along, maybe Lewis had been wondering about Tim too. We asked Amber what she remembered of Lewis's mom and dad, who had been like family to Tim when he was growing up.
He looked up to them like parents, and she was very much a mother figure to him. And she was pretty furious over hearing these things about him.
Do you recall any details about that?
It was, hey, they're talking about you being there. You took it too far type of thing. And he was just, I wasn't me. I wasn't there. I didn't do it.
I also asked Amber what Victoria told us she remembered Amber saying many years ago. How there was a night she and Amber had been drinking daiquiris and Tim had stepped out for a moment. When Amber made a comment like, Tim's even gotten away with murder. I asked Amber about this. No, she said, she never had the thought that Tim had killed anyone. Gotten away with murder is just a figure of speech, Amber said. She would never have meant that literally. And if Amber ever did make an offhand comment like Victoria remembers, she wouldn't have been talking about Renee. she probably would have been talking about herself and the things Tim had gotten away with doing to her. But Victoria had told us about another conversation she'd had with Amber, about how Amber had told her Tim was choking her during sex, and that she didn't like it and was concerned that he might go too far. That conversation had happened, Amber told me. She remembered it clearly. What was going on with Tim had alarmed her, so much so that at one point when she and Victoria were alone, Amber had confided in her. Tim had denied to us that he was into that, but Amber said that's not true. It was his go-to move, she said. But that was not the only problem in their relationship.
There's times where I ran for my life. When I called the police in January of 2009, I was hiding under a semi-truck next door, and he was out walking the streets looking for me, telling me he was going to kill me.
Tim was arrested and ordered to take domestic violence classes. And that's where, apparently, Tim had watched the video on domestic violence that features Renee's murder and shown the photos of her body lying on the floor of the Home Depot. One thing Amber did warn us was that we shouldn't take everything Tim says seriously.
Tim's kind of a blowhard, he just likes to talk shit, so...
That's also a reason why she was so shocked to hear what Tim has had to say on the podcast. After being with him for a decade, Amber thought she'd heard all of Tim's stories. But the stories she's heard him tell on Proof, she'd never heard him talk about before.
Every time his friends would bring up this whole case, he had nothing to say except, oh, she was my friend, I wouldn't do that. And Tim is that type of guy that if he had a story and he was connected to it, he wants to talk about it. So he would have said, oh yeah, I had him in the car this one time and da-da-da-da. And I've never heard him say those things. I don't know, when I hear what he has to say on the podcast, it's, listen, how do I describe it? How do I say this? Okay, so I know him so well that I know the tone and his nervous laugh when he lies, and most of what I hear, he's lying.
We've heard this from several people who know Tim. If Tim was lying, though, then why? I mean, there's the obvious answer, of course. He could be lying to cover up some involvement in the crime. But we're not so sure it's that simple. What if Tim wasn't being entirely forthcoming with us to cover up something else? What if he was trying to hide something that he knows looks bad for him, even if he wasn't actually involved at all? That'd be equally consistent with what we'd learned so far. And Tim is far from the only person in this case we've spoken to who we believe was less than truthful. For example, Jared Conway, the serial sex offender, told us he'd never even heard about Renee's case. But that was absolutely untrue. So why had Jared Conway lied to us about that?
Every day in America, 60 million packages are delivered. But we don't always know what's inside.
He bent down to pick the package up. That's when the device detonated.
Danger is everywhere, and no one is safe in Austin, Texas, as law enforcement hunts a serial bomber for 19 days. From Sony Music Entertainment, Campside Media, and Pegalo Pictures, this is Witnessed. 19 Days. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts to binge all episodes or listen weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
We know Jared Conway was lying because we spoke to a former friend of his, someone who had known him most of his life. And in 2014, that friend had written an anonymous comment accusing him of Renee's murder. Discovering the friend's identity was tricky, and finding him was even harder. He is not an easy man to track down. But when I finally did locate him and told him I wanted to ask about his old friend Jared Conway, the first thing he asked me was, That kid they convicted for killing that girl in Manteca, is he still in prison? Yes, I told him. He's still there.
It's crazy. All these years, and that's the thing that bothers me. It's like 20 years of this kid's life, man, and
24.
Dude, and it's insane. Poor guy, I mean, god dang. You ain't never gonna get that back.
Jared's former friend did not remember Jake Silva's name, but over the years, he's thought about him a lot. What happened to Jake has weighed heavily on him. That's why he agreed to meet with us and tell us what he knows. So we are recording now.
Yep, no problem.
Could you state your name for the record?
Junior?
Do you want us to use your name? Or
I don't care. One bit. Don't bother me one bit.
For Junior, there are a lot of reasons it's probably a bad idea to go on the record with what he knows about this case. In doing so, he risks serious consequences to himself. But Junior does not care. He wanted us to use his name, consequences be damned. Telling what he knows about Jared Conway is that important to him. However, we will not be using Junior's real name here. Not to protect him, but to protect the identity of his 14-year-old niece, who was Jared Conway's final victim. But Junior and Jared's friendship dates back long before that awful event. They met when they were kids, running wild on the streets of Modesto.
And we just became good friends, great friends. It was ongoing for, probably from when we were 13 to 19 years old.
What was he like back then?
Jared was cool, man.
At 19, there had been a hiatus in Jared and Junior's friendship when Jared went to prison. Though, until I talked to him, Junior had not known what Jared had been in there for.
They arrested him for statutory rape. But she was 17, he was 19.
She was 19, it wasn't statutory.
We thought she was 17, that's the story that we knew.
After Jared got out of prison in 1997, he moved in with Junior, who by that time was living out in the Bay Area.
Anytime Jared was out or anything, no matter what, he'd always get in touch with me. I've always accepted him as a friend. Up until 2008, I didn't know that he was a goddamn rapist.
In 2008 was when Jared Conway abducted Junior's 14-year-old niece and held her overnight. That's the crime he's still in prison for today. But even before the abduction of his niece, Junior had known there was something a little off about Jared. Or at least he knew anyway that women seemed uncomfortable around him.
I knew he was always creepy. Girls say he's creepy, but he's never done anything remotely that would make me not be his friend.
So girls you knew who knew Jared told you he was creepy?
Sometimes. They just say, he gets some dark eyes.
Shark eyes is how Junior described the look that Jared would get. But he also said Jared wasn't always like this. It was only when he used meth that things would get weird.
His demeanor changes so much because Jared not on drugs. You would never in a million years. He's so proper. He's so polite to women. He's real well soft-spoken. But then he gets some black eyes and on them drugs.
Shark eyes?
Dude, it's crazy.
Around 1999 or 2000, Jared went back to the Central Valley. Not to Modesto, though. He moved in with his mom and siblings in Manteca, near the Indy's car wash that his brother now owned. And Conway was using meth again. Junior knows this because he's the one who was giving it to him.
He calls me up. Hey, what the fuck you put in that shit? And this is at the house in Manteca, mind you. And he goes, fuck you. And I go, fuck you? Who are you talking to? He goes, I'm talking to this Amish ghost. I go, Amish ghost? I go, what the fuck is wrong with you? I said, I told you, Jared, you don't shoot up that stuff. I said, they'll snort it.
It's hard to pinpoint exact dates, but from what we know, this time period is roughly around early summer of 2000. Because not long after that, Junior recalls having a conversation with Conway. Based on the timeline, it's very shortly after Renee's murder.
Oh, yeah. That's the day that he said, I need help, man. He goes, can you help me come fix my mom's car? And I go, yeah. I go, what's it need?
Jared and Junior were driving back to Jared's house, where Junior was helping replace some parts in his mom's car.
He goes, all right, so we'll go back to my mom. She got the parts for her car. So we're driving back to Manteca. He goes, here, take this road. And it's Austin Road. I go, why? He goes, it's shortcut. And I go, shortcut? I go, the same way. Because Austin Road's just a little bit longer of a way to get to Yosemite and Manteca. And he goes, that's where that bitch got strangled. And I'm like, what bitch? I go, you mean that little girl? What the fuck are you talking about? Excuse my language, but that's quote unquote. But for him to say, well, that's where that bitch got strangled, what really caught my attention.
And also calling an 18-year-old girl?
A bitch.
Did he usually talk about girls that way?
Not really. He said, you know that one girl, you know that chick, you know what I mean? He was never rude. He was never mean to women. You know, he was just creepy around them.
From what Junior remembers, it was only a couple of days later that Jared brought the case up once again. It all started when he and Jared were hanging out at a friend's house in Modesto.
We go to my friend's house. We're all over there and we're all doing drugs, whatever. We're all talking about things, and they're talking about rewards for somebody seeing a murder. Well, it was talking about another friend. Somebody had killed somebody in front of him.
The conversation had been about a case in Modesto, nothing to do with Renee. But apparently Jared had missed that part. Because while Junior was driving Jared back to Manteca, Jared began quizzing him on it.
So that's when he goes, hey man, was that reward you guys were talking about have anything to do with that Manteca girl? And I look at him, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So y'all heading back to
heading
Manteca.
back, yeah, from over there talking to all these people about all this stuff, and we're all just randomly in yards, and I'm trying to see.
They're talking about reward money for turning in criminals.
Something totally different that had nothing to do with them. But then that's when I went, why would he say that?
Junior told some of their other friends about Jared's weird and paranoid reaction.
He got really paranoid. And then later on, I was sitting there just joking around about it. You know, he probably killed that girl, man. It was a joke.
When Junior would say that Jared had probably killed that girl in Manteca, it was a joke, but not entirely so. Junior was genuinely weirded out by the way Jared reacted to the Home Depot case.
You know, it's not a bitch. She was somebody's daughter, and she got killed. And then the reward part, like, you said there was a reward. I didn't know that.
There was a reward.
See, so he knew that. He obviously had to know that because I didn't.
Junior had concerns, but there was also a reason he didn't think it made sense that Jared would have done this.
That's why when I asked you, I don't understand how she ever got in his car, how he lured her to that building, because he's creepy.
Junior obviously believes that Conway is capable of doing some terrible things. But he also doesn't think it likely that Conway would have just grabbed a girl off the sidewalk. He thinks Renee must have gone willingly with Conway somewhere at first, though he doesn't know how that could have happened. But the fact this crime was apparently committed at a Home Depot makes perfect sense to Junior. Because Junior hadn't even lived in Manteca, and he remembers eyeing the new Home Depot building as a place you could go to not be noticed.
You know, it's perfect right there. They were building Home Depot. His brother's car was there. Just dump it right over there.
You could
drive right inside the place because it was so big. And I remember the construction site. I could see right at it. Drive by it all the time.
Did someone just drive her right in?
That's what he had to, because it's always wide open like that. I ain't gonna lie, you know, it's like, I always said, oh, that'd be a good place to go and do some shit, you know? Like, you'd have to worry about cops or anybody pulling up on you, and it's cheaper than a motel. I mean, that's how life was back then. It was nuts.
Another thing that seemed to make sense to Junior, though, was that Renee may not have been raped at all.
Did they have any other DNA on her either? No, nothing or what? Because, like, you know, obviously you can't hold his mud with the escorts.
Hold his mud?
I've never heard that expression.
And that's why, Junior explained, he had not been surprised to find out that there was no DNA found in the rape kit.
Looking back now, Junior thinks there were signs all along Jared was involved in Renee's death.
I mean, there had been hints, but it just didn't piece together. Like, at the time when you're going through this lifestyle and you're doing things, you're not thinking that he's throwing hints out, but he is.
Jared Conway never admitted involvement in the murder, or anything like that. But Junior says there were enough comments from Jared over the years that he started to wonder. And this is why Junior is certain that Jared Conway knew about the Renee Ramos case. Because Junior and some of the other people Jared knew would sometimes joke with him about being responsible for the crime.
Up until that point, that it was like little jokes, like, you know, man, he probably killed that girl.
So, like, the whole time in the back of your head,
it's there.
You're not, like, you don't say my friend Jared is a rapist murderer. The thought has somewhere.
Yes, because I would make jokes about it in the way, like, you know, like, yeah, he probably did that to that man, girl, not to be
so the
cruel
thoughts,
and mean. Yeah, it was
the thoughts
there,
in your brain already.
Big time. Yeah, it was there.
It wasn't too long after that, though, that Jared Conway left California and moved to Oklahoma for a while. Junior wonders if it was his joking about Jared killing the Manteca girl that made him decide to get out of town.
So he left and he went to Oklahoma. So that was in probably 2001. So he took off there and then he came back.
For the next 7 years, this pattern would continue. Conway would move out of the state for a year or two, and then he'd come back again. And each time he was back, he'd call Junior and they'd pick up again where they left off. Jared started in Oklahoma and finally landed in Memphis, but he always came back.
One time when Jared was back in town, he came to Junior with a strange request.
And he goes, I need you to go to the bank with me. And I go, where? And he goes, you need to take me to the bank in Manteca. I said, what?
I remember we were talking before, and you were saying, like, I don't know why he wanted me to go to the Bank of Manteca. Bank of the West of Manteca. We're in Modesto, we got banks here.
Yeah, and weird like that.
Did he say why Manteca?
I thought it was because that's where everything happened, in Manteca. Because I think in Jared's mind, he knew I knew, but I didn't know.
On this day, when Jared tried to get Junior to go with him to Manteca, Renee's name was never mentioned. But Jared was acting paranoid. He started talking about delusions he was having, and Junior recalled a night, years ago now, back in 2000, when Jared had been living in Manteca, and Jared had called him because he was seeing Amish ghosts. While in the car on the way to the bank, Jared was having the same delusions he'd had back then. That's one of the reasons Junior thought to himself, oh man, Jared thinks I know he killed that girl in Manteca.
In his mind, he knew I knew. I'm telling you, he knew I knew. And then he's looking down, there's a razor knife right here in the center console. But he kept looking at that razor knife. I think something was going to go down that day if we went to Manteca.
Junior had told me the story the first time I called him. And as he was describing Jared's demands to go to the bank in Manteca and how paranoid Jared was acting, I remember thinking to myself, okay, but why is Junior so sure this incident is about Renee? Renee's name is never mentioned, so why is Junior so sure that's what this is about? Maybe Jared isn't the only one being paranoid in this story. And then, as we were talking, I pulled up Google Maps and looked for the Bank of the West in Manteca, and saw that it was right there next to the Home Depot.
And I said, why Manteca? They got one right over here, bro. You know what I mean? Like, why do we got to go Manteca? It doesn't make sense. But he kept insisting on Manteca.
Wait, so it was the Bank of the West of Manteca?
Yeah, the Bank of the West.
It's right next to Home Depot.
Yeah, see, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that's the one. That's the one right across from Home Depot. He wanted to go there.
See, so he wanted to take me back to that scene is what he wanted to do. That's what I felt. See, I didn't know Bank of the West was next to Home Depot. That even makes more sense to me.
I just looked at that.
He wanted me to go to Manteca that day.
In fact, he wanted Junior to go right next to the place where Renee's body was found. So maybe Junior is right about what Jared was thinking that day. In the end, though, nothing actually happened on this trip to the bank. While they were in the car together, Jared's dad happened to call, and that seemed to diffuse the whole situation. They ended up going to the Bank of Modesto after all, and everything was fine. But Junior feels certain that Jared's paranoia that day was due to him thinking Junior knew he'd killed Renee Ramos. That bank is right next to the Home Depot.
There you go, see? Because he wanted to go reminisce that day, I'm telling you. If his dad wouldn't have called it probably could have changed for the worse.
After that, the possibility that Jared had killed Renee Ramos was no longer a joke or a thought in the back of Junior's mind. It was something he was actively concerned about. Junior wasn't going to hang out with Jared anymore after that. And anyway, Jared left town again, maybe back to Oklahoma or somewhere else. Junior didn't see him again until July 4th in 2008.
It was probably about 8 o'clock that night. 4th of July was pretty much over. We lit off fireworks.
Jared pulled up at Junior's house, hoping to talk to his old buddy. Jared was upset and worried because a detective from Memphis had called Jared's dad and was asking questions about him.
He goes, well, they called my dad's house for me. I go, well, then why don't you talk to him? I go, what happened? He goes, man, I got in a little trouble in Memphis. And I go, so what, you gonna be on John Walsh or some shit? He goes, I don't know, maybe. We're at the strip club, me and these guys, we're doing a little bit of whatever. We get to my place and then they say, hey, here's $50. Go to the store and get some liquor. He goes, when I came back, they was all gone, but there was like blood on my floor and everything. I said, what'd you do? He goes, I cleaned it up. And then he goes, I bounced and I'm here. I go, did you think the girl was dead or what's the problem? If you seen blood on there, what if they punched her in the nose? What, she had her period? So I go, that ain't John Walsh, unless you know something. What happened to the girl? He goes, I don't know. I go, well then you ain't got nothing to worry about, but if you do, then maybe we'll see you on there.
It hadn't been all that long since that trip to the bank had left Junior feeling certain that Jared killed that girl in Manteca. And now Jared was showing up again with a sketchy story about why homicide detectives in Tennessee were looking for him. Junior was done with Jared.
I said, I don't even want to hear your bullshit, bro. You got to go. He goes, oh, come on. I go, where you staying at? He goes, my mom's new house in Ripon.
What Junior didn't know was that this was a lie. Jared was not staying at his mom's new house in Ripon. Jared's mom didn't even have a new house in Ripon. In fact, Jared wasn't staying with his mom at all. At that time, Jared was temporarily staying with Junior's brother-in-law, who was also friends with Jared. Jared returned to the house where he'd been staying, and where Junior's 14-year-old niece was asleep in her bed. How did you find out that your niece was missing?
I get a call, and it's my niece's aunt. She's all, Jared and missing. I go, okay, so what do you mean they're missing? Okay, so what? Like, missing as in what? Like, they ran off together? I didn't know what the fuck was going on. She goes, Jared was staying there. I go, whoa. What do you mean staying there? Yeah, and he kidnapped. I go, kidnap? What do you, whoa, what do you mean? They go, can you please come over here? Please. I said, okay, I'm going over for sure. So I went over there and I started talking to cops.
For Junior, this was a big deal. What he agreed to do was go over to his niece's house and try to help in whatever way he could, including by talking to the police, in public, standing in the front yard of the house there. That's not something someone like Junior is supposed to do.
By this time, I got street cred that's crazy. And I didn't give a shit. I didn't care who knew, but I didn't give a shit. It's my niece. I don't care what's going on.
Junior was going to talk to the police anyway, if it helped his niece. But to Junior, it felt like the police were not that concerned. They seemed to think that the missing 14-year-old must have run off voluntarily. So the police weren't treating this as the emergency it was.
They're not wanting to do nothing. They don't want to do Amber Alerts. They don't want to do nothing. They want to keep it. I'm like, fuck these people. I go over to my brothers and I'm calling radio stations. I'm doing whatever. And I go, what are you guys going to do, man? Like, we're running out of time.
That's when Junior told the police, you don't understand. Jared Conway is dangerous. I believe he murdered a girl in Manteca and murdered another girl out in Memphis. And if my niece is with Conway right now, her life is in danger too.
And this guy's looking at me going like, he's looking at my rap sheet and he's on, yeah. And he said, maybe you should bring that up Manteca. And I said, I'm bringing it up with you guys now. That's when I brought up the Memphis shit too at the same time.
My suspicion is that when he told them about Renee and Manteca and the girl in Memphis, they did not believe him.
Yeah, with me, of course, because with my whole history, like, look, I mean, my history it's got some good spurts in and bad spurts, but I mean, I've never been a bad person, but I've done some bad things, you know what I mean?
Not long after that, Junior was standing there in the front yard when he saw a familiar Honda pull down the street. It was Jared, and he seemed to be alone in the car.
It's daylight now. Where can this fucker driving up? And he looks at me and I go, what's up, dude? And he goes, what? I go, what the fuck's He goes, I don't fucking know. And I go, get out of the car, motherfucker. And he went, and took off. So he was just coming back one last time to gloat, I think. I don't think he knew that anybody knew that he had got her.
So was he returning her?
He was returning to the scene. Now, she was in the trunk. She was duct taped. He tied her hands up with her bra and duct taped her mouth and had her in the back of the trunk of the car. And I never asked her. I don't know if he has sexually assaulted her or not.
He did not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But he was gonna. I told the cops, what the fuck? They're all just standing there watching me talk to him. I'm like, here's the suspect. None of them even reacted. I'm like, there he goes, motherfuckers. Like, he's driving off now. What the hell? I go, hey, go chase the guy.
There was a brief high-speed chase before Conway's car crashed. He tried to run, and he struggled with the officers, but they tased him and subdued him. And when they opened the trunk of his car, they found Junior's 14-year-old niece, injured but alive.
Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Jared Conway was adamant that he was going to take the case to trial. The victim's family did not want that, because if that happened, Junior's 14-year-old niece would have to testify, and she'd already gone through so much.
The day that we were going to court for my niece, he says he's not going to do it. He's going to fight it because he didn't do nothing, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, whatever. Then that's when the DA came back, and the DA's like, hey, you come here, guess what? What you talked about to that cop, it paid off. I go, what do you mean? Well, he was a suspect in Memphis, and somebody had found the girl's body in a shallow grave, I guess, or it got washed up or something. I don't know. How was that girl's body found? The one in Memphis.
Her bones were found.
Yeah, see, that's what it was. So somebody had found it, so they said, guess what? And he's the number one suspect.
Junior doesn't know exactly what was going on behind the scenes, but this discovery about Conway being a murder suspect in Tennessee seemed to play some kind of role in his negotiations with the DA's office.
Because I guess what happened in Memphis, they threw at Jared, and that's why Jared didn't go through the trial. Because whatever she told him made him take the deal.
So something about Memphis made Jared agree to the deal.
So yeah, she goes, we got news up there. There was a body found, a shallow grave, and he's suspect. And she goes, we got his ass no matter what.
After hearing from Junior, Jared Conway's confession to the murder in Memphis suddenly seemed much more important because of the possible implications it had for Renee's case. Modesto police were told about 2 possible murders Jared Conway had committed. Junior told them he thought Conway had killed one girl in Memphis and one in Manteca. And Junior turned out to have been absolutely right about the murder in Memphis. When Conway was asked about it, he confessed. Which raises an important question. I mean, if you've been told that someone committed 2 murders, and when you ask that person about one of them and they straight up confess, you'd probably go ahead and ask him about the second murder too, right? So, did that happen here? Did officials in Modesto ask Jared Conway about the murder in Manteca as well? Did they ask him about Renee? We don't know. Stanislaus County officials have denied a records request, so they're not going to tell us what happened. But if they did ask him about Renee's murder, what did Conway tell them? Is it possible he could have confessed to that too? Well, if he did, I do think it's absolutely possible we'd have no idea about it today. And that officials in San Joaquin County would never have been told. Because Conway did confess to LaToya's murder, and as far as we could tell, the police in Memphis were never told about that. Here's something else worth noting, though. Since we don't have access to Jared Conway's actual confession, technically we don't know who Conway confessed to killing in Tennessee. We've been assuming it was LaToya Lusk, because that case matches the details in Conway's letters to us, and some of what Junior recalls Conway telling him back in 2008. Not all of it matches up, though. Some of what Junior remembers, both from Jared Conway himself and from what the prosecutor told him, seems to describe a different murder altogether.
The DA just went out and said, hey, guess what? Your girlfriend found, because he told me it was a girl he was dating that was named Mary or something up there.
Mary. So
yeah.
He told you when he came to your house, he said it was a girl named Mary?
Well, he said he was dating some girl named Mary there, so I thought the girl that he was telling me a story about the apartment was Mary.
But as far as we know, LaToya Lusk was not Jared's girlfriend, and she was definitely not named Mary.
You know, I don't know. That's the name he gave me. That's the name I remember. You know, somebody Mary, or even when maybe Mary was a fake person, because he told me, he made me think that Mary was the girl. See, I thought when he told the story, there was actually his girlfriend he killed. You know what I mean?
Unless
That's
he
what
killed
came to
Mary
mind.
too.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
We should ask about Mary, his girlfriend in Tennessee, and see if we take some bait for that. What Junior knows is far short of being proof that Jared Conway was involved in Renee's murder. But we owed it to Junior to take what he told us seriously, and to do everything in our power to find out if Conway really was responsible for this crime. Because to Junior, this isn't just speculation or rumors or a hunch he has. He feels certain, based on what he knows of Jared Conway, that Jared killed Renee. And Junior is so certain of this that he was willing to risk everything in his life to tell us what he knows. These risks are not theoretical. Remember how Junior went over to his 14-year-old niece's house after the abduction and told police there what he knew about Jared Conway? Well, there had been consequences for that, after it became known what he had done.
That I spoke to detectives like that almost cost me my life just for saying that, even though that it's the right thing to do, but those people in there, they don't think it's the right thing to do, you know?
That's why, even after Jared Conway's conviction for his niece's abduction, Junior did not initially come forward with what he thought he knew about Jared's other crimes.
It started weighing on me over the years, and finally, man, I mean, I don't know how many years ago, because it was right after the uncle got killed. I said, man, I don't care about what people think of me on the street.
It was too late for Ty Lopes for there to be justice for him. But that kid was still in prison for a murder that Junior believed his former friend had committed.
being called a rat in jail, so be it. You know what I mean? This kid don't deserve it all these years. If I got to be that for that, whatever, I didn't give a shit no more. If people knew about it, I didn't care. Call it whatever you want. I call it justice.
Jacinda and I are obviously not law enforcement, but that's a distinction with little difference. If Junior ever ended up back in prison, talking to us would put him at risk. And by showing up to an interview with us, there was a real chance that prison is exactly where Junior would be going. Because, see, Junior is a wanted man, the kind that has a bounty on his head. And he thought Jacinda and I might be bounty hunters who were posing as podcasters. And our request to interview him about his old friend Jared Conway was actually just the world's most elaborate sting operation. Did you think might be a setup?
I didn't know, but I didn't care. I was going to take a look. I tell you honestly, I brought money just in case I was going to go, so I had money to take care of myself while I was gone. I'm not lying. There's $3,000 in my envelope. Like I said, I got an active warrant out there. I had bounty hunters that were chasing me.
But you're willing to risk that because...
Why? Because, it's like, look, I lived my life. This kid's he took a... It's like, it ain't going to kill me. And I said, if that was the day, if I got here, then I got cut. I brought $3,000 in my pocket to put on my books.
Did you?
I sure did. I'm not lying.
Junior wasn't lying. He showed us the envelope he had carefully prepared with what definitely could have been $3,000 in it. He brought that money with him to the interview so that if we did arrest him, he'd have that money put on his books right away. So at least things would be a little more comfortable in jail for him. Junior was willing to risk his freedom to tell us what he knows, because he believed that was the only way there might be a chance for justice in this case, both for the poor girl who was killed in Manteca and that poor kid still in prison today for a crime he didn't commit. That's how convinced you are that Jared is guilty of this.
Oh, yeah. Come on, you guys know I'm not here to bullshit. There's no way that this wasn't the guy. I promise you that.
After our interview, I wrote to Jared Conway once again, this time to tell him that we'd met with his friend Junior, and that according to Junior, and contrary to his prior letter to us, he had known all about the Renee Ramos case. And I also wrote, Junior thought you had a girlfriend in Memphis named Mary. Tell me about her. Just to see if he'd elaborate on why Junior remembered Conway saying that whatever happened in Memphis had something to do with a woman named Mary. Then we waited to see what he'd write back.
Junior decided to come forward with what he knew, despite the great personal risk to himself, because he believes it's the right thing to do. Even if he knows that in his world, lots of people aren't going to agree with him on that. In most circumstances, if Junior had information about a murder, he'd never think to involve the authorities. But to paraphrase his explanation for why he's talking now, I'll ride with you all the way. Unless you rape and murder an 18-year-old girl, in which case I'm not riding with you anymore. There are a lot of people out there, though, who know something or think they know something, and have decided it's just easier to not get involved. Besides, as I was told by someone who'd known many of the people at the sister's house, the only person who wasn't scared of what would happen to him if he talked was Eric Greer. And look where he is now. Despite that, though, some people have decided to talk to us. One of them was someone we hadn't even been looking for. We'd met her by a chance encounter, and she'd asked us to call her by the name Kelly.
I feel bad for the guy in prison because he's not guilty. But it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Kelly is right about that. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And if you're trying to figure out what actually happened with the sister story, here's the number one thing we've learned. Ignore everything people say they've been told by others and focus on what they actually saw and did themselves. Because if you listen to what people say they were told about the sister story, what you end up with is a hot mess of contradictions that no one has ever wanted to spend time to investigate. But we've realized if you focus just on what the people involved say that they themselves saw or heard or did, their stories start to fall into place. And one thing Kelly told us she herself did was to talk to a man we're calling the Source. And based on what Kelly told us, the Source had to be someone who had at least a little firsthand knowledge of what had happened to Renee.
How'd you hear about it for the first time?
Well, actually, a person started telling me the story because of the group that Renee had gotten associated with just for that night. And when he was telling me the story, I was like, I have no idea who this girl is you're talking about, but I heard about the Home Depot thing, right?
The Source told her that her friends at the sister's house had somehow been involved in the murder, and that they had the girl's backpack and shoes. And if Kelly didn't believe him, which she did not, then she should go ask him for herself. So Kelly had gone to ask Jamie, the younger sister, about what the Source had said.
And so I went and asked her about it, and she shut down, just shut down. And I asked her where a couple things were, and her quote to me was, barbecue pit. Burnt.
Eventually, and with the help of someone else who was familiar with the sister's house, I was able to figure out who the Source was and track him down. I sent him a message asking to talk. He was hesitant at first, but then, one day, he finally called. At around midnight, when I was already asleep in bed. When I saw who was calling, though, I was instantly awake. So, forgive the recording quality of this call. It's not one I had time to prepare for.
I remember this pretty clearly, and I often think about this. For you to reach out like that, I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Much like Junior, the Source has been haunted by this case for a long time. There is a weight that comes with knowing that an innocent 18-year-old has spent the last 24 years in prison. And the Source told me that he believes Jake is innocent because he thinks the people at the sister's house were actually responsible for what happened to Renee. But Renee didn't really know any of this group.
Not at all. Not at all. And she couldn't have went to the more wrong place, wrong people. I would have never thought this would be like this, and it is shocking and sickening and all kinds of things for me. Here's the thing. Even though I know it's the right way, right? And they might not see it that way. In fact, I know they won't. Do you want the story right now?
I do.
Just something happened one day, and that's where I'd start the story and tell you how this...
Yeah, start from there.
Okay, so I remember when Jamie came with a guy named Tim. I don't know his last name. He was a tall, skinny guy. And they said I was like, what are you guys going to do? And they said they were going to go to a party at the Home Depot warehouse. And I said, yeah, well, that's weird. That's strange, right? And so as you come out our front door, it's like there was a field there and you could walk across. So they were going to cut across the field all the way, to go to Home Depot. And I thought it was kind of weird, but whatever. They said, you guys would probably get arrested. But so I guess it was about 7 a.m. Someone knocks at the door, and it was Jamie and the guy Tim. So I opened the door, and she looked distraught. She looked like scared, nervous. And I was like, what's wrong, Jamie? And she just shaking her head no, like she couldn't talk, like tears coming out of her eyes, and something wrong with her. And she just kept looking straight and shaking her head, and then she covered her face with her hands. And then that guy Tim, he came in, and I said, hey, what's going on? What happened to Jamie? And he goes, oh no, man, it was just kind of drama night. And I go, yeah, kind of drama. I mean, she looks like she seen something bad, like some bad shit happened. And he goes, oh no, it's not like that. It's just things got weird. But I was a little concerned actually, and he said she'd be fine. So he talked to her. So I backed off, and eventually they took off. Actually, abruptly took off because I didn't even know they were going to leave, and they were gone. So.
To the Source, it wasn't weird that Tim and Jamie would be hanging out together. But the way they'd been acting when they came back was very weird. And then, later on that day, The source noticed something else weird when he went outside to smoke a cigarette.
And I'm like, I see these shoes, right? Just sitting on the shelf. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like, where did those come from? I go, those are your ladies? He goes, probably. And I go, well, ask her. So she came down and seen them. She said, no, they're not fucking mine. You guys didn't put them there? We're like, no. And I was like, well, that's weird, man, because I was just smoking a cigarette in here before Jamie and Tim came, and those were not there, right? So what happened was somehow, like, one of them put those shoes in there. They put those shoes in the garage. And why, I do not know. I could not tell you to this day why they had them or why they put them in there.
Do you remember what kind of shoes they were?
They look like kind of kids, maybe looking. It seemed like they had like a larger white rubber part of the toe.
Yeah.
You know? So I thought that was hella weird.
When Renee's body was found, she hadn't been wearing any shoes, and the backpack she always carried was nowhere to be found. A week after she was discovered, police put out a press statement requesting information about Renee's missing JanSport backpack and brown and black Vans. The shoes the source says he found at his house clearly were not those Vans. He remembers white shoes that kind of look like Keds, maybe. But Renee had another pair of shoes, and it's possible she had them with her when she went missing. And those shoes were a pair of white Adidas, not Keds, but at least potentially something that could be mistaken as such. We did reach out to Tim Fisher for a comment. He quickly responded that what the source was telling us is a lie. And it's far from clear that these shoes the source says he found had anything to do with Renee. But they do sound very similar to another pair of shoes in this case. The shoes that Eric Greer says he saw at the sister's house, thrown into a closet with a backpack he'd never seen before. And there's good reason to believe that the shoes the source found and Eric later saw are the same pair of shoes.
So the next day I heard that something happened to a girl at the Home Depot warehouse. And I go, hey dude, Jamie was acting hella weird. Something happened there. Okay, something happened there because of the way she was acting. I go, I'm gonna find out what the hell is going on here. There's some weird shit, right? I don't know, why are these shoes in our garage? And I say, they're going back with her. These are not gonna be here. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I don't like it. I had the shoes in a bag and I went to the door and I knocked, but then nobody comes to the door. So I knocked harder and I knocked on the window and all that good stuff. And finally, Julie answers the door. And she goes, oh, hey, what are you doing? I go, I just came by to see what's up. And she goes, it's kind of a bad time. And then I hear Liam say, hey, wait, is that I need to talk to him. He goes, hey, come out in the backyard with me. So I go out to the backyard, and he's different too. They're all different, acting real secretive. And so he tells me, hey, what's in that bag? And I go, I want to know, I think Jamie left these or Tim left these when they came to the house then from the party or all you guys went to or whatever. And he goes, I didn't go to no party. And I go, okay, well, whatever the case, these shoes are left by one of them. So I'm bringing them back here. Some weird shit because that girl that found dead over there and then these shoes are here is some weird shit, dude. And he goes, it's on the news? I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't know that? And he goes, no, man, I didn't know it was on the news. And he goes, oh, I don't know, man, I wasn't there. And I said, okay, well, whatever, dude. And he goes, hey, man, can you do me a favor? And I go, what? He goes, I have this backpack that I'm trying to fucking get rid of. And I don't want it. It just has a bunch of girl shit in it. I mean, you give it to somebody or sell it or whatever. And I go, Liam, sit down. And I go, what's going on, bro? Really, what's really going on? And I go, where the fuck did this backpack come from? And he goes, I don't know. Somebody brought it over. They were trying to sell it, left it or whatever. One of the girls, you know how it is. You know, and that kind of stuff does happen.
The source told Liam he was absolutely not taking the backpack with him, and he was leaving the tennis shoes with Liam too.
And I don't know what you guys did or what, but something happened weird. And I don't like the taste of it, bro. And so in the backpack, you keep it, bro. I don't want any of this shit because it's not mine and it's weird. And he's like, why you say it like that? I go, it's weird, man. I don't know what's going on, bro. There's something wrong with you. But I'm just going to go right now because I'm getting lightweight mad.
Was the idea in your head then that something had happened, that they'd done something?
Oh yeah,
bad?
already. It was already there. I knew it. Something happened, or they seen something at the very least, right? I never would have thought that it was going to be anybody I knew to do something like this.
The source's story would explain why Eric Greer saw a girl's backpack and tennis shoes over at the sister's house. According to the source, Liam already had a girl's backpack for some reason, and the source had left the pair of girls' white tennis shoes with him as well. But still, there's no actual evidence it was Renee's backpack and shoes that the source and Eric saw over at the sister's house, even if they both came to that conclusion. Though it wasn't until a day or so later that the source found out Eric knew anything at all.
Then Eric gives me a call. He says, bro, I got a problem. And I'm like, so what's up? He goes, I don't know, man, I need to talk to you. So he comes and talks to me and doesn't really elaborate on anything other than that there's going to be a problem. There's something going on I can't quite tell you about yet. Right? And I don't know what's going on. It makes no sense.
Like what kind of problem we're dealing with? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and he goes, hey man, keep an eye out. And I go, for what? He goes, just keep an eye out. Okay? It's bad, bro. It's really bad. And I'm like, okay, I'm really like tripping out now.
If you're confused right now, well, the source was just as confused about what was going on, and he was stuck in the middle with all of this weirdness going on around him. And things just kept getting weirder.
So the next day, Eric calls me, says he's on top of the roof. They won't let him off. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, they won't let me off the roof, bro, because I know too much.
The source does not know what exactly happened on that rooftop. But whatever it was, the situation seemed to resolve itself.
He goes, Dad came home. So I think I'm going to be able to get off. So I guess he gets off unscathed. I see him the next day. He's telling me they're trying to frame him. They're trying to pin that thing that happened to the girl on him. I know Eric, and this guy was terrified, and I've never seen him that way ever. I mean, terrified like a kid. He goes, bro, you got to find out something. And I go, Eric, well, how's that going to help? How's that help you? He goes, you got to find out something. You got to ask questions. And I knew that this was something super bad, and I got to get in there and try to figure out something.
So the source did just that. He went and talked to people. He pieced things together. And he thinks he knows which of his friends were involved.
Like, what the fuck? You guys, who's killers around here? Nobody. But apparently you are. It was bad.
Here's the thing, though. The source doesn't know what happened. All he knows about who actually killed Renee is what he's been told. And this goes back to what we said earlier, about ignoring everything people say they were told about what happened, and to focus instead on what they actually saw and did themselves. Because the source knows what he was told, but here's what I know. Back then, this group of people was not being truthful with one another. They were varying degrees of confused and concerned and freaked out, and also generally not sober. They were lying to each other about a lot of things. But to be fair, the source had good reasons to think that what he was hearing was credible, and that the people he was hearing it from would not have had a reason to lie about the particular things they were saying. In the end, though, what he knew or thought he knew didn't matter.
I thought, oh yeah, I've cracked the case. good shit, right? Not so much.
Now, I know I just said to focus on what people saw and did themselves, and not in what they were told by others. But I'm going to break that rule now, because here's one thing the source was told that we think is worth sharing.
I think the police think this happened at the Home Depot warehouse, right?
They do.
Okay, yeah, well, it did not happen at the Home Depot warehouse. They questioned all of these guys, and they all had the same story, tight as shit.
What was the story that you think they told?
I think the story that they told was they did go to a party at Home Depot warehouse. There wasn't a party there.
Didn't they tell you there was going to be a party there?
They told me there was going to be a party there, but there was no party there.
Is it a few days before, or like what's the timeline here?
Okay, so she found the day after that. So
you think she was already dead when the quote-unquote party?
She was already dead before they went to that party. That happened 2 days prior, because, this is what I'm being told.
The source has no idea what the purpose of the story about the Home Depot party was, or why Jamie and Tim were lying about it that night when they came over to his place. But he believes the story was something they were also telling the police.
Now, they think they killed her at the Home Depot. That's not how it happened. It happened in the garage at the house. It happened at the garage in the house with all those people inside, not knowing until afterward.
Do you think the people in the house knew what happened?
They knew it happened afterward.
The source believes that most people at the sister's house had nothing to do with Renee's murder. But afterwards, he says, they had to have figured out what actually happened. They had to have known who did it. But I'm not sure he's right about that. My sense is that there are a number of people out there who, based on circumstances they're aware of, believe that someone in that house must have killed Renee. But they don't know which of the people in the house it was. Which could explain why, afterwards, they were all paranoid and lying to each other. Because they didn't know who they could trust. The thing is, though, I'm also not convinced that anything directly related to Renee's murder actually happened in that garage on Pistana Avenue. I can't say it didn't, and I get why some people have concluded that's what happened, but I think they could be wrong about that. The source had been shocked that someone he knew could be involved in a murder, but he'd also been shocked by how many people he knew and considered friends were fine with doing nothing about it. And from what he believes, even helped to cover it up.
I mean, why would you just roll with something like that? Like, I wouldn't roll with this shit like this. I don't care. I was ready to say what I had to. What happened was wrong. It was so wrong. And at the time, I didn't give a shit. And I knew I was risking my ass full blast. I knew I was.
When Ty Lopes and Jake Silva were arrested for Renee's murder, the source did something dangerous. Something that, in the eyes of the circles he runs in, he knows looks really bad for him. He did it anyway, because he thought it was the right thing to do. He went to the police and told them that they'd arrested the wrong people.
Well, they didn't even listen to me. That's the way it is.
You talked to him before the convictions.
Excuse me?
You talked to Steve Harris before the convictions?
I did, personally, yeah. I tried. But it didn't matter in the end. They went with their hunch and twice and failed both times.
What do you mean who went on their hunch and failed?
The cops. They got the wrong guys. Both times. I mean, that's sad.
The officer that the source went to was Sergeant Steve Harris. The source had known Harris was involved in the investigation in some way because he thought other people had told Sergeant Harris that Eric Greer was somehow involved. So that's who he tried to pass his information on to try and correct the record when they arrested Jake and Ty. Unfortunately, Sergeant Harris has since passed away, which means he's not around to confirm this. But I need to pause for a moment and stress what an absolutely huge fucking deal this is, what the source is saying here. If what the source is saying is true, that would mean the source gave Manteca police evidence that would point towards Jake and Ty being innocent, and they never disclosed it. Law enforcement may have known of a witness who had credible information that Renee's death had nothing to do with Josh Burrows' story, and never told Jake or Ty about it. Police or prosecutors aren't allowed to do that. The Constitution requires them to hand over evidence favorable to a defendant's case. When that doesn't happen, that's a violation of the defendant's due process rights. It's a Brady violation. If what the source says about telling Sergeant Harris what he knew is true, that's a Brady violation, and if proven, would likely have been sufficient to overturn both Jake's and Ty's convictions. Because I can guarantee you that if the defense attorneys had known about the source, Jake's and Ty's trials would have looked very different. But the source says that when he told Manteca police what he knew, they told him he needed to just let it go, to forget everything he knew.
They ignored because I think they didn't want to look dumb again. That's why Steve Harris told me to back off.
Back when this happened, the source talked to a lot of people at the sister's house, including people we were not able to speak to. So we're left with no way to verify what the source says those people told him. But there's one person in this case the source himself never heard from. That's Jamie, the younger sister. The source has always wondered what she'd have to say about it.
There's a couple times I talked to her after all this happened. I'd hit her up like, Jamie, what happened? And she'd be like, no, I'm not doing this. And she'd get real irate and shut it down.
In the stories I've heard, it's consistently Jamie being the most emotional.
Oh yeah, she was shot out when she came over that morning. I knew her good, and this was not her.
Although the source had important information for us, he himself does not know what actually happened. And going solely off of what people have said they themselves saw and experienced, we feel confident in saying this. A number of people connected to the sister's house believe that she was killed at that house by someone who had been there. And their reasons for believing this are plausible enough based on how they're interpreting the events they experienced. But no one we've spoken to has been able to tell us that they themselves saw Renee's body there, not with their own eyes. This gap in the sister's story makes us confident that if we're looking for answers, we have to look beyond the sister's house, because there's a number of ways to interpret the events people remember happening there. Maybe someone simply left a random backpack at the sister's house, much like the source says someone left a random pair of shoes at his place. Maybe Renee was at the sister's house and left her backpack there, expecting to return for it later, only she never did. Maybe she did hang out with people connected to the sister's house, and then later on, she ran into someone dangerous. Maybe someone like Jared Conway.
In Jacinda's last letter to Conway, she had told him that we had talked to Junior, and that, according to him, Jared had known about Renee's case. She'd also asked Conway about Mary from Memphis. A week or two after that, I got a text message from Jacinda that had me calling her immediately.
Hey.
You can't text me you got an odd message from Conway and not expect me to call.
Well, I mean, literally, are you recording?
Yeah.
It literally just came in. I'm still trying to process it. All right, this is the message. Hello, Mrs. Davis. My name is Mike. I am currently being housed in the medical unit with Mr. Conway. On March 11th, Mr. Conway suffered a seizure, which led to a stroke. He has partial paralysis and loss of memory.
Keep going, sorry.
He showed me his tablet. He does not know who you are, but he wanted me to write you and thank you. He should be moving to a medical facility soon, so thank you for your message.
What the fuck is this shit?
What?
It's from Jared's account, correct?
It's from Jared's account. I mean, he says he's using Jared's tablet.
We did some checking around, and from what we can tell, no, Jared Conway did not have a stroke seizure that gave him amnesia. We feel pretty sure that was just his way of avoiding answering any more of our questions. Still, we were left to wonder what exactly it was that had spooked him. Because there were two things in the last letter that we thought it could be. The first was a question about Mary in Memphis. And the second was about how his friend Junior had been telling us what he knew about Renee Ramos from Antigua. So which one was it that had freaked Jared Conway out? Mary or Renee? To try and find out, it was time to go to Memphis and to meet with the cold case unit there.
Tune in next Monday for the final episode of this season of Proof, Murder at the Warehouse. Proof is produced by Red Marble Media in association with Glassbox Media. Send us your questions and comments at proofcrimepod@gmail.com. We'll respond during our bonus episodes, Proof Sidebar, on Thursdays. Kevin Fitzpatrick is our executive producer. Our webmaster is Clayton Brawley, and our theme music is by Ramiro Marquez. Audio production for this episode is by Michael Ulatowski, Steve Rentas, and Jesus Orbaez. Our archivist is Amory Davis. Our social media manager is Skylar Park. And thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Check out the show notes for special sponsor deals. And follow us everywhere with the handle @ProofCrimePod and on our website, proofcrimepod.com.
And lastly, a note to our listeners. If you have any information related to this case, we'd love to speak to you, no matter how small a detail it may seem. It just might be more important than you realize. You can reach us by email or leave us a voicemail at 929-267-3172.
That's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening.